nurse that walked into that room.
Awesome.
So every time you talk to me, I wrote down what you were saying, what you thought the prognosis was, what medications, so that I could then Google it, because by no means do I have any background in medicine. So you're speaking to me in a language that I don't understand, but I'm going to learn it.
That's important, because sometimes those medications have side effects.
Exactly.
And there was a point in time my sister was in the hospital, and the nurse came in, did not say anything. Her husband was sitting there, my mom was sitting there, and she just started pushing this medication into her IV, and my mom said, "Wait, what are you giving her?" Exactly. And she told her she said she's allergic to that. Immediately, my sister went into a frenzy. She didn't recognize her husband. She didn't recognize my mom. The family didn't ask questions.
Yes, and I believe and I trust in the medical staff. However, I also know that they're human.
And you have to do your due diligence.
Exactly. And so I need to be sure that I have my husband and my family's best interest at heart. So I'm going to ask you some questions. And if I ask you the same question 4 times, you're going to need to answer me 4 times in 4 different ways until I get it. I'm going to Google everything you say. I'm going to ask some other medical professionals, what do you think based on this? So they came up with their prognosis, and my husband did have to have them go into his head. And so the whole time was to decide whether it was cancer or whether it was a virus. But the only way to figure that out was that he did have to have brain surgery. So I asked the doctor, okay, doc, what do I need to put my money on? Do I need to put it on the cancer, or do I need to put it on the virus, or the tumor, or a virus? And he said, well, if you had to pick one, you want to pick the virus. I said, well, that's what I'm going with. So when you come back, I need that to be your report. This is a virus. That's what I need the outcome to be. He said, okay, yes, ma'am. And in that whole process, one thing that was really cool and scary all at the same time, you said that I was in education. I've been in education for about 14 years. When the neurosurgeon came in to meet with us, with him were about 3 younger people. One of them was a former student of mine.
Wow.
And so he said, I was Vaughn at the time. He said, Ms. Vaughn, it's so good to see you. I hate that I'm seeing you under these circumstances. I said, well, I'm so happy to see you. But what I think educators sometimes forget is that the same kids that are in your classroom, regardless of the age, will one day possibly be the same people in that emergency room or in that surgery room taking care of you or a loved one. So I joked with the kid, and I knew this kid very well, great young man. And I said, wait a minute, before you take him, what was our relationship like in school? I just want to know, how did we interact? And he just laughed. He said, I loved you, Ms. Vaughn. And I said, and I love you too. So I knew that there was someone else in that room taking care and looking out for my husband and myself.
And it also gave you probably some relief to know, okay, I know somebody.
Yes.
And so I can kind of relax a little bit, because it's a little different when you are trusting the health of your husband to strangers that you don't know.
It is.
So,
it is. But one thing I can tell you, I know the inside and outside of Spring Hill and USA's chapel. I was there all the time. Whenever somebody could sit with them for just a minute or came to visit, that's where I was. Because I believe in those medical professionals, but I needed those that had the experience that we needed and had our best interests at heart in that room with him at every waking moment. Those are the only people that I needed to have interact with him.
So in the time that we have left, how long did it take him to recover from that?
Well, it was supposed to be a year that he would be on IVs. I told the doctor he needed to be ready to go by August 1st. The doctor laughed just like you. So he did actually go home within a week or 2, and we had to stay home for the summer. But he actually received the green light to go back to work August 1st of that same year.
Awesome.
Yes, he continued on the medicine that he had to take, but we worked out where he could give it to himself. We had gotten to that point. And then that next year, about March, or maybe even before March, because it was 7 months in total. The doctor said this is nothing but a miracle because he can come off of the medicine.
Awesome.
Yes, after all of the MRIs and everything, it had been cleared completely. So he said, I just don't know what to say, because he was supposed to be here for a year and a half. And in 7 months, he was done.
Awesome. That's
So,
the power of a praying wife.
hello. But not just me. It was everybody, I think, pulling for him. So all of those prayer warriors, God heard those prayers. So I appreciate it.
So how is your relationship have gotten better through this situation?
Oh, definitely.
Made you guys closer?
Yes, a lot of the things that we were experiencing were actually symptoms of the illness. So the reason he wasn't communicating was because he had tumors growing on his brain. The reason his teeth were the way that they were is because the disease or the virus was affecting his teeth. All of these things that were challenges before were all tied to this virus. And so now his teeth look the exact same way that they used to look. It all immediately went away once that virus was removed.
Can you tell how he contracted the virus?
Unfortunately, this virus is not known to be found in the brain. And so that was interesting from the beginning. And I told the doctors, look, this is no different from my husband. He likes to keep you on your toes. So you're going to just have to figure this thing out. But still, with all of the places that it's supposed to be found, they tested every single one of those and could not find the virus or the root of the virus anywhere.
Wow.
So I'm not quite sure. They're not quite sure where it started, how it got to his brain at all. But my concern, and as I told them, we can stop running tests because that's not my concern anymore. My concern is that he is healed, all of that is gone, and that we continue to follow up with this moving forward to make sure we keep an eye on it.
So, what are you guys doing differently now that you've come through this situation? Are you traveling or spending more time together as a couple?
We are. Sometimes things may not look like blessings, but they are. So he's not coaching basketball this year as of right now. So that's good. That's more time automatically off the back that we're able to spend with one another. But I think the biggest impact for me has been that the things that used to be probably very minute that would bother me no longer do. I look at it a little bit differently. And our approach when he does something or says something that may have triggered my frustration in the past, I try to be more conscious of my response to that. Because I do value him as a husband. I do value our relationship. And maybe those things weren't as important prior to as they are. And they weren't important, honestly. But it was just minor frustrations that I would have because I told you I'm short on patience sometimes. So I think we have grown much closer than we've ever been. Awesome. And that feels good.
Okay. So what advice would you give someone that's going through that same situation? The spouse may have fallen ill and they're, because sometimes people fall apart.
Yeah.
They don't want to, if their spouse is down, they don't want to have anything to do with the children or, they just can't find the strength in themselves to be the mother or whatever their role is to make sure that the household is still moving. So what would be your advice to them?
Well, my first thing is that you need to be sure you're on your knees. You need to be praying for whatever those things are that you need. So if it's strength that you need to be praying for that. If it's patience, if it is the ability to care more about that spouse than you at this moment or to help your kids, that's what you need to be praying for so that God can give you those things. And then from there, you got to work, you got to go. You have to work in that. You have to believe that everything you are doing is what he wants you to do, and in the direction you're moving in the direction that he wants you to go in. But honestly, it can be very difficult, extremely difficult, but you do have to kind of come out of yourself, out of your personal feelings, and show that love for those that you are caring for. Because I didn't care whether I took a shower today or not. I didn't care whether I really ate good food or not. It was about him and making sure that he had everything he needed. So trying to focus on that person and getting that person to a better place is what helped me come through. But you also have to be open to realizing that you as an individual can sometimes have faults too. So you got to put those things on the back burner and look at what's most important at the moment. And if that's having that person be healed, then that's what you got to focus on. If it's making sure your kids don't know a difference, then you got to put all your energy and time constantly run to make sure that everything they need is kept in order and in line. But unfortunately, in these situations, sometimes you got to do less of you and more for that person.
That's excellent. And one last thing, I want to talk about caretakers fatigue. Okay. Because that's a real thing when you're caring for someone and you're giving them your strength, your time, your patience, and then you start to get a little frustrated because it's a lot.
It is.
How do you overcome caretakers fatigue?
Well, one thing is I would cry in the bathroom. Don't tell my husband.
Okay.
But I would go and cry in the bathroom like, I just can't do it. I can't take anymore. And then once I had my moment, I got to get back at it. Now, see, I do have a different mentality from some people. In my house, we have a 24-hour rule. You have 24 hours to be sad or upset about something. After that, we need a plan as to how we're going to overcome. And so I always kind of have that mentality in my head. Okay, these are my 10 minutes to myself in this bathroom to get my act together. But after this, what's my plan going to be to get me through the next hour and a half, 2 hours? In addition to that, having a support system where you can just go take a shower or have a moment where you don't have to rush to someone else. Being able to have family or friends that can come in and do that, I think is awesome.
That's the world right there.
It saves so much of your mental and emotional stability. It helps you to maintain that. But if for some reason you're in a place where you don't necessarily have that network, I would even seek out. There are websites where you can find caregivers that can come in just for an hour for you so that you can step away and kind of be you. Get that moment to relax. So in that quiet space and doing whatever it is you want to do. If your thing is getting a banana split, get your banana split. If your thing is getting a massage, get your massage. Whatever that is to give you that moment of centeredness, then go back and get at it. And then find that time again to be able to have that moment here or there. But I think just picking and choosing when you get those moments is important, and making sure that you have someone that can care for that other person and make sure they're okay. So that way you can still have a peace of mind while you're resting. I think is huge.
Awesome. Well, we are actually over.
Oh, no.
But it's been a great show. I look forward. Next week, we're going to talk about finding balance in business and in family.
Yes.
So that's going to be a really good topic. So, guys, I want you to stay tuned next week, 7 a.m. to the Color Outside the Box podcast with your hostess, Princess Miller. And we'll be right back next week with our special guest, Miss Kristi July. Stay tuned. Color Outside the Box is a podcast series that focuses on creating a better you. Whether it's advice about family, relationships, raising children in this technological world, marriage, or careers, we seek to find the answers to help you live your best life. So start your Monday morning off right with me, your hostess with the mostest, Princess Miller, on Color Outside the Box right here on iTunes and everywhere podcasts can be heard.